Okay, part two of Protestant Reformation. We were talking about how, Luther has started this wildfire, this Reformation, and you've got some people that really like it, and then others are kind of using it for selfish reasons, seeing it as a way to assert their independence from the Pope, from the Holy Roman Empire, to seize church property. And so basically, what you start to see happen is this very drastic fighting and possible wars that are going on. So Charles V, the Holy Roman Emperor, basically orders all German princes, both Protestant, who have become Lutherans, as well as Catholics. He said, I want everybody to come together in a place called Augsburg. And so Lutherans basically at Augsburg present what's known as a Confession of Augsburg. It's an attempt to prove to Rome that, look, we're not that different from you. The ideas that we're projecting and we're sharing, they're biblical. And this confession, known as the Augsburg Confession, is the basis for the Lutheran faith today. So if you know individuals who attend a Lutheran church, they understand this confession. They understand this idea of, the Confession of Augsburg. However, reconciliation is going to prove impossible. Charles is basically going to order Lutherans that they have to reunite with the Catholic Church. And they need to do this by 1531. And of course, the Lutherans say, no, thank you. We're pretty happy where we are. And so finally, in 1555, they will come together once again. Charles V will sign what's known as the Peace of Augsburg. And at that moment, the princes are allowed to pretty much determine what the religion is going to be of their particular area of land. They have the right to choose. And that will pretty much be the culmination of the Protestant Reformation in the majority of Europe. However, we then need to see that the Catholic Church will face another great challenge to its authority, and this time it happens in England. And many of you are familiar with this story. There's plenty of documentaries and movies and shows that are out there that talk about this, but this kind of discusses how Protestantism makes its way to England. And unlike Luther, the man who will break England's ties to the Roman Catholic Church does so not for religious reasons, but he does so for political as well as personal reasons. And his name is Henry VIII. He becomes King of England in 1509. He is a devout Catholic. It's pretty interesting that even in 1521, he was writing a stinging attack on Luther and Luther's ideas. And because he was so against Luther, the Pope had actually given King Henry VIII the title Defender of the Faith. He was a staunch Catholic. He was a strong defender. However, political needs are soon going to test his religious loyalty. Because what does the king need? What we've talked about all throughout world history thus far, he needed a male heir. He needed someone that would become king, that would be his child. His father had become king after a long civil war. Henry thought that there was going to be another war, and what happens if the king died and he didn't have a son as his heir? He was married to his wife. Her name was Catherine of Aragon, and they had a child. And the child that they had was a daughter. It was Mary. But it was very unlikely that Mary would be able to become Queen of England. And so Henry is convinced that Catherine, basically, she's too old to have any more children. She's never going to provide him an heir. And so he decides that he wants to divorce her and he wants to have a younger queen. The problem is church law doesn't allow for a divorce. So he's kind of stuck. While he's in this place of indecisiveness, he doesn't know what to do. He has a woman on the side that he is enjoying and sleeping with, and her name is Anne Boleyn. And so She's young, she's in her 20s, and he thinks she could really produce an heir to the throne, but he's got to get rid of Catherine of Aragon. He's got to find a way to divorce her, and since church law doesn't allow for it, he does know that the Pope can annul, the Pope can set aside the marriage to Catherine of Aragon. And so he basically goes and says, hey, I need you to annul my marriage. And the Pope turns him down. The Pope doesn't want to offend the Holy Roman Emperor, who's Charles V, who just happens to be Catherine's powerful nephew. And so the Pope says no. Henry VIII says, okay, that's fine. I'm going to have to solve the marriage problem myself. And so what he does is he calls Parliament into session, and he asks Parliament to put in a set of laws that will basically end the Pope's power in England. He wants Parliament to say that the king is head of England's church as well as the head of England's political establishment. So in 1533, Henry VIII secretly marries Anne Boleyn. She's in her 20s. While that's going on, Parliament will legalize Henry's divorce from Catherine. And so we have this idea that comes about. So now you have Henry VIII, who is free from Catherine of Aragon. He is now married to Anne of Boleyn, but also Parliament has approved this act of supremacy, which means that England must accept Henry and not the Pope as the official head of England's church. Not everybody could accept this. Thomas More, even though he had strongly criticized the church, he was devout Catholic, and he said, my faith is not going to allow me to accept a king as ruler of religion, as also a ruler of politics. And so he says, I'm not going to take the oath. I refuse to. Henry gives him a chance, says you need to, and Thomas More says no, and so the king has him arrested and imprisoned in the Tower of London, and Thomas More will be found guilty of high treason, and he will be executed. Well, Henry doesn't get the male heir that he sought with Anne Boleyn. Anne Boleyn gives birth to a daughter. Her name is Elizabeth. Henry VIII gets ticked off at Anne Boleyn because she doesn't give him a son, so she falls out of Henry's favor. He will eventually charge her with treason. He will put her in the Tower of London. He will find her guilty and will have her beheaded in 1636. He then turns to a third wife. Her name's Jane Seymour, and Jane Seymour, the third wife, finally gives Henry VIII a son, and they will name the son Edward. However, his happiness doesn't last because 2 weeks later, Jane Seymour does pass away. Henry will marry 3 more times. However, none of those marriages will produce any children. Henry VIII dies in 1547, and when he dies, his son Edward becomes king. The problem is that Edward, who is now known as Edward VI, is only 9 years of age, and he's not really able to rule. He's guided by adult advisors. These adult advisors are devout Protestants. They start bringing in Protestant reforms to the English church, and Edward VI, who has always been in ill health, will die 6 years later. And so then Mary, remember Mary who was Henry's daughter from Catherine of Aragon, she does take the throne in 1553, and she was Catholic. And so what she decides to do is forget everything that Henry VIII had done. She returns the English church back to the rule of the Pope. She basically says we're going to follow the Pope now and not the king. And so her efforts will be met with resistance. She will have many people who do not like her ideas. These are Protestants. She will have them executed. She will have them burned at the stake. And that is why she gets the name Bloody Mary. She will die in 1558. And when she dies, Elizabeth, who is Henry VIII's daughter from Anne Boleyn, she will take the throne. And when she takes the throne, yes, she decides that what she wants to do is to try to establish a church that will moderate between Catholics as well as Protestants so that everybody can get along, if you will. So, to please Protestants, what she decides to do is she says priests who are part of the Church of England can marry. They can deliver sermons in English and not in Latin. To please the Catholics, she says that the Church of England will keep some of the church traditions, such as robes, and that services will be more acceptable to Catholics, if you will. But by providing this modern approach, she brings about religious peace to England. However, that will not be the end of it because the Protestants will push for her to make far reaching church reforms. Catholics will try to overthrow religion, try to overthrow Elizabeth because of religious reasons, and replace her with her cousin, who will be the Catholic Mary Queen of Scots. And so, all of a sudden, because of this religious movement, you'll start to see a war starting to develop between individuals, and it all comes about because of faith. So, understand that religion plays a tremendous role in politics.